Good afternoon and Happy New Year. Welcome to this month's Research Matters. I am Erica Salzik, the Department Administrator for UT Southwestern's Human Research Protection Program. Before we jump into today's presentations, here are some general housekeeping items. First, if you have any questions for presenters, please type them in the Q&A. One of our moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentation. Second, the Research Matters session is being recorded and will be available immediately after the conclusion of the live session. You may access the recording by clicking on the same link provided in the Outlook appointment. Shortly after the conclusion of this session, we will send out any slides and/or handouts via the listserv, and you will also be able to access the recordings and documents on HRPP's Research Matters website, which can be found under the Training and Resources page. And finally, we provide a certificate of attendance to those who have logged in using a valid email address. This email will be sent separately from the listserv email and will only be sent out to those who have logged in with a valid email address. As always, if you have any questions, please send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu. So here's today's agenda. We will begin with a couple of updates from Rhonda Aleppo, followed by a presentation from our Sponsor Investigator Support Team, or SI Support Team. They will introduce the UT Southwestern SI Support Program, provide an overview of sponsor investigator responsibilities, and explain the support they provide to maintain federal compliance. So let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Erica. So I have just a few departmental updates for everyone. I think everyone knows that Joshua Fedawa's last day was this past Friday, January 14th, 2022. He did leave us to move to the University of Michigan as their IRB, medical IRB director, which was a very exciting opportunity for him and a very sad day for us. In addition, Yvette King, who's one of our senior regulatory analysts, and also the meeting manager for IRB1, is moving to the Simmons Cancer Center effective January 28th. So she will be the program coordinator of the community outreach program at the Cancer Center. We also have open positions. So of course we have the IRB director position that's currently posted and we're accepting applications for. We have our senior regulatory analyst, that was Yvette's old position. That's for the IRB office. We have 3 regulatory analyst vacancies with the IRB office as well. And then we have a regulatory monitoring analyst on our QA and monitoring team. We have a regulatory scientist that will go to support the regulatory support office and the sponsor investigator support team that's going to be talking with you today. And also a clinical research educator that is supported by the CTSA and helping to go towards the CTSA initiatives and aims. As you can tell, we're running very lean right now due to our IRB vacancies. So we appreciate your patience as we work through this time. And of course, if you know anyone interested in one of these positions, please ask them to apply. We are starting interviews this week and next. Next slide, please. So one additional update that I wanted to provide you is around ISAC. So there's been some confusion around ISAC review, when it's required for research and why it might be required. So in an attempt to streamline the review, we have had a series of meetings between the IRB office and ISAC to clarify the types of research activities that will require this additional review. So as a reminder, ISAC is a committee that's charged with review of acquisition of information systems. They intend to reduce risk to the institution, decrease redundancy, and drive cost savings. That's the purpose of their review and oversight. As the series of meetings have culminated in 6 different types of research activities that we've agreed upon that would require ISAC review. So those activities are first, most of the studies will actually apply to this first category. That would be processing or storage of identifiable data by a third party. Second is creation of a study website on any of our UT Southwestern domains. Third, creation of a mobile app. Fourth, software or hardware, which costs over $15,000 and is purchased with UT Southwestern funds. Fifth, integration of any external systems with the UT Southwestern system, such as Epic. And sixth, any purchase of cloud software or infrastructure. So as a reminder, any of these activities, if they're part of your research study, they'll require an ISAC review. Next slide, please. I think we went too far. Okay, I think you're missing a slide, but that's okay. I'll just go over the highlights of the ISAC changes. First, many studies that were previously sent to ISAC no longer require submission. For example, de-identified data. So anytime that research studies might be sharing de-identified data to a third party, we were previously requiring those to go to ISAC for review. That's no longer the case. Second, want to let you know that Greenlight will not be held for final ISAC approval. So we are only holding Greenlight or study activation for the submission to ISAC when we know that ISAC review and approval is required. So we'll just need confirmation from the study team that they've actually submitted to ISAC for review and the study could be activated, but we will not hold activation for the final approval from ISAC. Third, letting you know that guidance will be sent with the slides after today's session and should be posted to the HRPP website later this week. EIRB is in the process of being updated to include the 6 new criteria. And so it'll be very clear when you submit your application whether or not you're going to need the ISAC review and approval. But wanted to let you know that the IRB analysts are following this new criteria already, and they're not waiting for the IRB updates to be implemented. So this is effective now. We wanted to get it put in place as soon as possible just to help streamline and speed up your approval process. Next slide. There we go. Now I'm going to turn it over to the Regulatory Support Office to discuss the sponsor investigator support that's offered by HRPP.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eriko Iwatate. I'm with Resija Nambia and Raj Varadarajan from Regulatory Support Office. And I'm also with CTSA project leader, Lucy Palmer from Psychiatry Department. So we'll be speaking about UT Southwestern Sponsor Investigator Support Program. Next slide, please. So this is the outline of the talk. So I will be introducing the SI support program. Resija is going over sponsor investigator responsibilities and reporting timeline. Raj is going to go over FDA regulatory process and support that we provide to the investigator. And Lucy is going to talk about CTSA and her support for this program. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of Sponsor Investigator Support Program, as known as SI Support Program. So in our team, again, we have Raj, Resija, Lucy, and myself to provide regulatory support to UT Southwestern community. So currently, we are hiring regulatory scientists in our team, as Rhonda mentioned. Similar to our clinicaltrial.gov program, Sponsor Investigator Support Program, we are the central place to provide support and guidance for the IND, IDE, expanded access, so pretty much all FDA-related activities, and help sponsor investigator to stay in compliance with the federal regulation. We offer regulatory advice or consultation to UT Southwestern sponsor investigator, including determination of IND, IDE, EAP requirements, guiding on the appropriate regulatory pathway, providing a roadmap direction on application process, along with other parallel requirements such as IRB and CT.gov reporting requirements and their reporting timeline. So we also provide assistance with initial IND, IDE, EAP application preparation and submission, provide assistance with IND, IDE, EAP lifecycle maintenance reporting activities, such as preparation and submission of the protocol amendment, safety report, annual report, and termination of IND, IDE reports to the FDA, as they are required by the federal regulation. We also maintain database of all IND, IDE expanded access applications that are held by UT Southwestern sponsor investigators. And then we work very closely with IRB to provide reminders about these maintenance reporting activities to our investigator. And finally, we provide one-on-one or small group presentation, regulatory trainings to the UT Southwestern investigators. Next slide, please. So we have renewed our website where you can find a link to online booking systems to book consultation with us. You will also find user-friendly guidance document on how to prepare and submit IND, IDE, and EAP application to the FDA. We also have templates for the initial application, letter of authorization to the sponsor, cover letters, and other required FDA forms as well on the website. So this roadmap shows, basically summarize the history of this program and our future direction. So February 2021, we launched the program with 0.5 FTE. Last early summer, we added additional 0.5 FTE. And we continue to make an improvement with the program. So currently, this program is self-service program. So meaning that sponsor investigator is responsible for preparing application and submitting the required reports to the FDA. And our office offers tool and support, such as sending reminders to the investigator. So if an investigator requests, we can submit the application to the FDA on behalf as well. But if you are preparing, submitting application to the FDA on your own, that's totally fine. But anything you submit to the FDA related to your IND, IDE expanded access, you have to send those documents. So copy us when you send by email. So because we maintain a database, as I mentioned, and we keep the shadow files. So also we can send you the reminder for the annual report, and we can notify IRB and CT.gov team for appropriate IND status updates in the timely manner. So in the future, we hope to expand our program to hybrid model. So it's self and full support model, meaning that we do more heavy lifting work so that investigator and study team members do less work. So our goal, mission, really is to provide UT Southwestern community with the tool, training, and support needed to navigate complex regulatory pathway and stay in compliant with the federal regulation. So we are here to help. So now I'm going to pass over to Resija to talk about sponsor investigator requirements and reporting timeline. Resija?
Thank you, Eriko. Hello, everyone. As Eriko mentioned, I'll be going over the sponsor investigator responsibilities and the reporting timelines today. So let's get started first with the definitions one by one. So who is a sponsor? It is a person who takes responsibility for and initiates a clinical investigation. The sponsor may be an individual or pharmaceutical company, governmental agency, academic institution, private organization, or other organization. The sponsor does not actually conduct the investigation unless the sponsor is a sponsor investigator of the IND application. Next, who is an investigator? An individual who actually conducts a clinical investigation, that is under whose immediate direction the drug is dispensed to a subject. In the event an investigation is conducted by a team of individuals, the investigator is a responsible leader of the team. So a sponsor investigator is an individual who both initiates and conducts an investigation and under whose immediate direction the investigational drug is administered or dispensed. This is a quick overview of some of the important sponsor and investigator responsibilities. But in addition to this, we will be soon making the complete list of these responsibilities available on our website for your reference. Now let's go through the sponsor responsibilities one by one. The first one is selecting qualified investigators and monitors. Then obtaining information from the investigator like the signed investigator statement, investigator CV, and obtaining a commitment from the clinical investigator to promptly update the financial disclosure as needed during the course of the investigation and for 1 year following the completion of the study. Informing investigators by providing an IB, a current version of the IRB approved protocol, then informing about the new observations regarding the drug, particularly SAEs, and safe use of the drug. Then assuring compliance of investigators. This is done by the sponsor who discovers that an investigator is not complying with the obligations addressed under the signed statement of the investigator, that is FDA Form 1572, the General Investigation Plan, or applicable FDA regulations, shall promptly either secure compliance or discontinue supplying the investigational drug to the investigator and end the investigator's participation in the clinical study in such cases. The sponsor shall also require that the investigator dispose of or return the investigational drug to the sponsor. Ensuring proper monitoring of the progress and conduct of the clinical investigations at each of the involved study sites. Then maintaining an effective, that is up-to-date IND or IDE. This means that the sponsor shall review and evaluate evidence relating to the safety and effectiveness of the investigational drug or device as it is being obtained from the investigators. Shall submit written IND or ID safety reports to the FDA and provide copies to the participating investigators, and shall also submit annual reports, protocol amendments to the FDA. Then ensuring that the FDA and all participating investigators are promptly informed of serious and unexpected suspected adverse reactions and or other newly identified significant risks related to the investigational drug. Then record keeping and record retention requirements. This includes investigational drug accountability. The sponsor of the IND application maintains adequate and accurate records documenting the receipt, shipment, or other disposition of the investigational drug, and also retains the records and reports for up to 2 years after a marketing application is approved for the drug, or if application is not approved for the drug, then until 2 years after investigation of the drug is discontinued and FDA is notified. Then disposition of unused supplies of the investigational drug. For this, the sponsor shall assure the return of all unused supplies of the investigational drug from each investigator whose participation in the investigation of the drug has been discontinued or terminated, as well as may authorize alternative disposal of unused supplies, provided it does not expose humans to risk from the drug and is documented appropriately. Then inspection of the sponsor's records and reports, which includes FDA inspection and DEA inspection of controlled substances. So upon request, the sponsor should permit the FDA's authorized officer access to all records and reports, and at reasonable times, permit to copy and verify any record relating to the clinical studies being conducted under the IND. If it is a controlled substance, then upon request, needs to permit DEA authorized officer to inspect and copy the records concerning shipment, delivery, receipt, and disposition of the drug. Then clinicaltrials.gov reporting and results. The sponsor or the responsible party must update the records when there is a change in recruitment status, protocol amendments, and results to be reported for an applicable clinical trial as per ct.gov's reporting requirements. Then transfer of full or partial obligations to the CRO shall be described in writing, and in that case, the CRO shall be subject to the same regulatory action as a sponsor for failure to comply with the respective FDA requirements. Next, coming to the investigator responsibilities, the first one is protecting the rights, safety, and welfare of subjects under the investigator's care. Then ensuring that an investigation is conducted according to the signed investigator statement, the investigational plan, and applicable regulations. Then providing assurance of IRB review by a qualified IRB for initial and continuing review and approval of the investigation. This assurance is further provided by reporting to the IRB all the changes and unanticipated problems involving risk to human subjects or others. No changes in the investigation will be made without prior IRB approval, except where necessary to eliminate apparent immediate hazards. Then investigator record keeping responsibilities include accurate documentation of the case histories and disposition of the drug, including dates, quantity, and use by subjects. Then investigator record retention, all correspondence relating to the use of human subjects in research, as well as copies of the IRB application forms, approval notices, and signed informed consent documents needs to be retained by the investigator. Then control of the investigational drug. The investigator must ensure that the investigational drug is not given to any person not authorized to receive it, but only those under the investigator's direct care. If the investigation is terminated, suspended, discontinued, or completed, the investigator shall return the unused supplies of the drug to the sponsor, or otherwise provide for disposition of the unused supplies. Then regarding the inspection of the investigator's records and reports, the investigator must allow FDA's authorized officer access to all records and reports, and at reasonable times permit access to the FDA officer to copy and verify any record. Then delegation of the authority. Investigators may delegate responsibilities to appropriately qualified persons and must be documented. To furnish all reports, that is progress reports, safety reports, and final reports to the sponsor. Then the investigator must take adequate precautions to ensure the safe and secure handling of the investigational drug if it is a controlled substance. This includes proper storage in a securely locked, substantially constructed cabinet to prevent theft. The investigator needs to make certain that adequate medical care is provided to the subjects for adverse events and abnormal laboratory values that are related to the trial. And finally, promptly update the financial disclosure to the sponsor as needed during the course of the investigation and for 1 year following study completion. So on this slide, as you see here, a sponsor investigator is responsible for all regulatory requirements as both a sponsor and an investigator. So to reiterate, when you are the sponsor investigator holding the IND or IDE, you are responsible for all of these things listed here. Next, coming to the reporting timeline. Operationally speaking, timing of ERB submission, sponsor investigator IND or IDE submission, and required maintenance activities, as well as CT.gov reporting, are almost exactly in parallel. Like you see here in the life cycle for each of these, before your trial begins, when you plan to submit a study in ARB, you need to parallelly start thinking of determining if your study requires an IND or IDE, or does it require a CT.gov registration. At UT Southwestern, you must have your IND or IDE before it is assigned to an IRB agenda. When you submit to the FDA, you should also be submitting simultaneously to the IRB. Then the other thing that I would like to mention is when you have protocol amendments, there is no 30-day clock with FDA submission, but you must have IRB approval before beginning your trial. The exception to this is that a change intended to eliminate an apparent immediate hazard to subjects may be implemented immediately, and you can provide subsequent FDA and IRB notifications. Next, I'll just do a quick summary of the reporting timelines. For safety reports, the reporting timelines are based on the type of AE. In case of INDs for unexpected, fatal, or life-threatening adverse drug experience, the reporting timeline is within 7 calendar days of sponsor's initial receipt of information. For serious and unexpected adverse drug experience, it must be reported within 15 calendar days. For new animal findings that suggest significant risk to human subjects, again, it needs to be reported within 15 calendar days. And follow-up reports need to be reported as relevant information is available, but no later than 15 calendar days after sponsor receives the information. In case of IDEs for unanticipated adverse effect, the reporting timeline is 10 working days. In addition to reporting to the FDA, don't forget that there is IRB reporting timelines for UPERSOS. Not everything you report to the FDA has to go to the IRB. This table gives an overview of the reporting timeline for other reports in case of both INDs and IDEs, as well as to the IRB. This includes reports like protocol amendments, annual reports, final report, and results summary as seen in this table here. IDE has some more specific required reports. On this slide, you can see the different reporting timelines for additional IDE reports. Then this slide is a different perspective of looking at the clinical trial timeline of each of these stages that I already covered in my earlier slides. Please note that our Regulatory Support Office provides assistance in each of these stages for both CT.gov reporting and IND or IDE support. In order to give you all further details regarding the IND or IDE review process, I'll now hand over to Raj to continue with the presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Raj.
Raj, you're just on mute, so if you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, Rasija. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Raj Varadarajan, Regulatory Scientist at UT Southwest Regulatory Support Office. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Rasija. Good afternoon. I'm Raj Varadarajan, regulatory scientist at UT Southwest Regulatory Support Office. My segment will add another facet of information to Eriko's introduction to the SI support program and Rasija's discussion on sponsor investigator responsibilities and timelines. The talk will cover some details of the regulatory process involving the FDA and the specifics of UT Southwest SI support program's assistance for sponsor investigators. As you all may know, sponsor investigators planning to use drugs and devices on human subjects for research studies or trials involving treatment need to comply with the regulatory requirements by following a certain process and timelines, in addition to providing specific information for the agency from time to time. Set of slides I'm going to go over will illustrate the landscape of the regulatory process applicable.
Sorry, Raj, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're a little hard to hear. So if you can keep the mic up close to your mouth, that would be great. If you can keep the mic up close to your mouth, then we can hear you.
As you all may, I'm sorry, the set of slides I intend to go over will illustrate the landscape of the regulatory process applicable to the set of slides I intend to go over will illustrate the landscape of the regulatory process applicable to study or trial from the start to end. And they will also give some idea of the actual steps involved in terms of the tasks to be completed, where the SI support would be certainly valuable. Next slide, Rasija. Next slide, Rasija.
Raj, we're on the IND IDE life cycle. Is that the correct slide?
Yes. Next slide
Okay.
is yes, IDE life cycle.
Okay, then you can talk about that one because that one's viewing.
The flow diagram represents a 30,000 view of the regulatory support process, depicting 3 key stages. The initial stage of
So I think Raj is having a few issues with his slides and sound at the moment. So I think while he sorts that out, I'm just going to jump in here and we'll take on from the IND IDE life cycle. So from the start of the IND IDE life cycle is the before trial phase. This flow diagram portrays the regulatory process, and initially, before we start the IND or IDE, we need to think about some regulatory matters. So we need to think about what processes need to go into this, and we need to start our application preparation and submission. Once the submission has been completed, and you can ask our SI team to be involved in this, then we can move through to the submission for the FDA. This is where we would be looking to get FDA approval and also institutional approval through EIRB and also CT.gov. During the trial, once your study has been approved by the FDA, there is a maintenance period where any amendments or anything that comes into your study which changes things with your study need to be submitted to the IDE or IND. And also you will have annual reports, safety reports, or different communications that might happen with the FDA. And again, the SI support team can help with any of these. And finally, the concluding phase will be where you submit your end of trial documentation to the FDA, and there will be a final report and reporting of any results. Could we go to the next slide, please? So this is just a brief summary of the IND application process. A whole lot of things go into initiating a new study or trial involving human subjects. So initially, there are regulatory considerations. That's where we need to think about the strategy that is behind the IND or IDE and determination of any prerequisites that are required for submission. So we are really encouraging sponsor investigators to contact the UT Southwestern SI support team as early as they can while they're planning their IND or IDE application and to figure out anything that might be needed. The next part of this is to get the application ready. So there are lots of documents that might need to be reviewed, and we need to get all of that together in a submission that can be sent to the FDA. This can be submitted via the SI support team, and we have plenty of documents available to help you with this, and we'll go through those at the end of this presentation. And then we will complete the finalization of the application and submit to the FDA. Once it's been submitted to the FDA, there is a crucial 30-day time window when the FDA is completing their review of your documents. And it's really important that at this point, you look out for any correspondence that might come from the FDA, because they might ask questions, there might be deficiencies, they might require additional information to review your application. And often they need this really quickly. So they may only give you a 24 to 48 hour time window to actually get a response back to them. So it's really important during this process that you keep an eye on your email, you get your PIs to keep an eye on their email. And if anything does come through, please let us know. We're here to help you with reviewing these requests and making sure that we're responding to the FDA in the most effective way possible. Hopefully, you get through this process, the 30 days is up, and the FDA will give you a decision about whether the study can proceed or if anything else is needed. And then hopefully you get your FDA approval. Next slide, please. Once you get the FDA approval, that's fantastic. And then the next step you need to do is to get our institutional requirements. So at this point, you need to submit your approval letter to the IRB, and you'll get the approval from the IRB and also complete your ct.gov entries if required. And then obviously we go through operational setup and study activation. It doesn't end here though, because throughout the lifetime of your study, there are going to be changes to your studies or trials. Things might change, drug dose levels might be changed, different steps might be added in for safety reasons, and all of these come under what we call IND maintenance. And this is when you make an amendment or a modification which you need to send to the IRB. These often need to be sent to the FDA as well. They need to know about changes that you're making. And then also there might be ad hoc communications with the FDA, and then they have general reporting requirements, which Rasija briefly covered, that you will need to submit annual reports to the FDA with information about where you are with your study and any changes that might have happened. So that's kind of the maintenance that has to go on through the lifetime of the study, in the same way that there's ongoing maintenance through EIRB with UT Southwestern. And then once the research study or trial concludes, a final report needs to be sent to the FDA, and you need to go through with your results reporting. So during all of this, we are here to help. We are here to help with the final reports. We're here to help with ongoing maintenance. We're here to help with the submission of your IND or IDE. So please do reach out if there's anything that we can do to help with these processes. Next slide, please. So there are two things that we want to focus on this slide. And so at the top, we have IND, and at the bottom, we have IDE. And the first thing that we want to say is that the IND and IDE processes very closely overlap in terms of the tasks and the steps that you need to go through. So there are submissions that need to go to the FDA, there are documents that they require, they both have this 30-day review window and where the FDA might ask you questions, and they all require maintenance through amendments and reports and things like that. So they're very, very similar, really. The main difference is that there is a lot of information about drug agents. So for INDs, this is a very, very streamlined process. And basically, there are just less device-based studies. And so for IDEs, it's sometimes a little bit more nuanced. So if you're starting an IDE and you need a little bit more support with it, please do feel free to reach out to the SI support office. We're here to help throughout the whole of the IND IDE process. And so if there is anything that we can do, please do let us know. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the next thing that we wanted to cover was a little bit of the support that we offer through our office for both INDs and IDEs. So we can support an investigator team from very early on in the strategy planning and determine any prerequisites that might be needed for INDs and IDEs. So this could be planning around regulatory pathways or development of the drugs and the device, anything that's needed to have a discussion to make sure that we have all the information needed for the correct pathway for submission to the FDA. We can also then help with document preparation and submission. We have templates on our website, and we can review your documents and templates before they go off to the FDA to make sure that they're complete and you have everything that's required. We're also here to help submit with the final application if needed through the CDER NextGen portal or whatever route is required for your submission. Again, the 30-day review post-submission of application, very important. It's that special window where the FDA might get in contact with you. Please make sure you loop us into all communications you might have with the FDA. We're here to help you, and if the FDA do have questions, we would be great, and we can draft responses and work alongside you to get all of that information to the FDA in the most effective way possible. We are here to help with amendments, reporting and communications. Again, we have templates for amendments, annual reports on our website, and we're there to also review them and help you submit them if needed. And then finally, one key feature of our SI support program is document management. So it's really important, and Eriko referred to this earlier, that we are able to maintain and track the submission of any documents that have gone to the FDA. We need to know what is out there for the studies that are being conducted at UT Southwestern, and we also want to be able to help you so that if there are any needs for future FDA communications, that we can fulfill those for you. So if you could please make sure that any documents that are sent to the FDA, any communication you have via email with the FDA, we are also involved as the SI support office. That would be great, and we're there to help you with all of that. Next slide, please. So this is just a final recap of what we spoke about during this. So there is a regulatory requirement and a formal process that needs to be followed for INDs and IDEs. And we are here to help inform that for you at the start of this process. The SI support team is here to provide assistance with all of the different parts of your FDA submission, including determination, your application, submission, maintenance, and termination. And the majority of this information can be found on our SI support website, where there are application templates and quick guidance documents, which you can access in order to gain some support. So again, this is the work of Raj Varadarajan. He's one of our great team members, and unfortunately, due to the communication issues, he was unable to present this himself. But we are all here if you have any questions. And I'm just going to transition now to the part of the presentation which I'm more involved in, which is actually the CTSA program. So, so my background, is actually, I'm a clinical research manager in the Department of Psychiatry, but I am the CTSA project manager for the Regulatory Knowledge and Support Core of the CTSA at UT Southwestern. So you may have heard about the CTSA through an email from Dr. Toto and Dr. Peterson. This is a grant from the NIH, from the Clinical and Translational Science Awards Program, which promotes collaboration, communication, and outreach across different areas and institutions to promote scientific discoveries in clinical research. So my job as CTSA project manager for the Regulatory Knowledge and Support Core is to ensure effective delivery of the grant outcomes of the CTSA. Next slide, please. So UT Southwestern were fortunate enough to be awarded a CTSA grant this year, and this grant is made up of lots of different departments across UT Southwestern collaborating with each other to further scientific and clinical discovery. So this includes departments like computing, education, bioinformatics, among others. The core that we are working specifically part of as is the Core E, the Regulatory Knowledge and Support Core, which supports the clinicaltrials.gov and SI support offices. So the mission of our core is to enhance research quality and compliance with all relevant regulations, essentially through providing more support and help to the clinical research teams, so to you guys. And the way that we want to, get this mission completed is through deliverables. So like any grant, we have deliverables that we have put in place to really try and reach our aims. So our first deliverable is to work to support and develop the SI support program. And this is something that has been ongoing over the last few months. And a lot of the fruits of what you see today have been supported with CTSA support. I am an active member of the team, and I am supported by the CTSA. And we are also looking to potentially hire a new staff team member who would also be supported at least to some extent through the CTSA. Deliverable 2 fits in pretty well with deliverable 1 is we want to assist study teams through the SI support program with FDA submissions. And we've already been actively doing that with a lot of study teams. And we're hoping that as part of this presentation and getting all of this out there, that many more of you will come to us for help with your submissions. Deliverable 3 is a really important one. We want to develop metrics and track FDA regulated research at UT Southwestern. So this is important for a couple of reasons. You need to be able to track the FDA regulated research in order to ensure regulatory compliance and also to support the study teams with any FDA requirements that might come along. But also, like any grant, we need to ensure that we're fulfilling our outcomes and deliverables. And we're going to track these through metrics and measurement of how much support we have been able to offer to study teams to ensure that we are completing our mission and also that grant funds are being spent in the most effective fashion. And deliverable 4, which is also in combination with some of the other cores across the CTSA, is we're going to look to provide some more education and training for teams around FDA regulated research. Next slide, please. So there is only really one requirement for CTSA support, and this is the same as any grant, is all studies that have received support through the SI support program need to acknowledge CTSA funding support in any publications that may arise from this research. And that's just, the same as an NIH grant or a cancer research grant. If you are able to get support through the SI support office, then you are also utilizing CTSA grant funds in order to, access that support. And so we would just ask that you acknowledge the utilization of the SI support office and subsequently the CTSA grant funds as part of your publication. Next slide, please. So really, that's everything. Our take-home message is that the sponsor investigator support team is here to help you. So we would love you to visit our website and look at our templates and guidance documents. I just want to make a note about the website with a small disclaimer. It is there. It is finished, but currently IR are reviewing it. And so it might not quite be visible on the UT Southwestern server as of now. So if you're having a look, Right now, there is currently a small sponsor investigator section there, but if you're not seeing our full website, it's going to be published in the next few days. With the holiday. Unfortunately, it slowed things down a little bit. We were hoping to have it for you now, but it should be there in the next few days. So please do keep checking back, because we've really added a lot of information to our website. There's the opportunity there to book a free consultation via Microsoft Teams, so you can have a one-on-one discussion with us as the study team if there's anything you know we can do to help with your FDA submission. So please do check that out when it's up online. And we also ask you to stay tuned for future education sessions. We understand that this is a lot of information, and so we will definitely be breaking this down further in the future. We want study teams to feel empowered and knowledgeable about their FDA submissions. The main thing, though, that we would like to emphasize is please come to us before going to the FDA. We need to be able to track and know all FDA-regulated research that's happening at UT Southwestern, but we also want to make your lives as easy as possible. It's much easier to come to us before going to the FDA so we can help you thoroughly prepare, rather than the FDA having questions or deficiencies about the submission, which we may then have to solve later. We'd much rather solve those on the front end and give the FDA no questions to have to get your research started as quickly as possible. So please do contact us. You can reach out to us either via email, which is sisupport@utsouthwestern.edu, or through our website, where we have the links to the one-on-one Microsoft Teams bookings, which should be up over the next couple of days. So next slide. So all that's left is to take this opportunity to thank you so much for your time and attention, and we are here for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Lucy, so much. Wow, what a wonderful presentation full of lots of information. And yes, we know that that was a lot of information, so please do use our resources that are available to you if you have any questions. And as always, if you're not sure where to go with your question, you may email hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu. And so I'll just take a moment to see if there's any questions that pop up in the Q&A. So. And at this time, there are none. But as always, you know where to go with your questions. And I want to thank our presenters today, Lucy, Raj, Erico, Rasija. Thank you for that presentation. I want to thank you all for attending today's session, and the next Research Matters session will be held on February 15th. So I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you all so much.